Most people go through life on autopilot, never questioning the way they think, even about faith. They follow the crowd, adopt patterns and practices, and rarely stop to ask, why do I think the way I do? Why do I believe the things I believe? But what if the key to living out God's will isn't just in your spirit, but in transforming your thinking? Welcome to MetaCognito, where we rethink faith, leadership, and strategy. But wait, what is MetaCognito exactly? Good question. I am Dayo, and to answer that, I'll need to show you two distinct verses of the Bible that inspired the name. First is Romans 12 verse 1 to 2. Therefore I urge you, brothers, by the mercies of God, to present your bodies a living sacrifice, holy, acceptable to God, which is your spiritual service. Don't be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind, so that you may prove what is the good, well-pleasing, and perfect will of God. If we look at this verse as a duality of relationship, we would say to relate with God, you present your body as a spiritual sacrifice. And to relate with the world, you need to work on your mind. I have heard and read people say things like, being a Christian has a lot more to do with your heart than with your mind. I honestly don't think that's all there is to being a Christian. If not, you will not be said to have the mind of Christ. The word transformation is same origins as metamorphosis. So from here, I picked the prefix meta. The mind is the second component of that verse. And depending on the Christian circle you belong, it's usually assumed your spirit is more important than your mind, which is true. But without your mind, you cannot function in this world. So at some point, you need to mind your mind. In psychology, this is called cognition. Metacognition, when you think about your thinking. And that seemed to be what Paul was saying. Don't be conformed to this world and their ways of doing things. Take some time to think about how you think. Work on it. Change it. Metamorphosize it. When you do that, you, not God, will be able to prove or discern what the will of God is on any matter. What Paul goes on to describe as good, well-pleasing, and perfect will of God. In other words, if you want to find out what God's will is, check your thinking. And yes, this is where the second part of the name came from, cognition, or as I like to adapt it, cognito. So with MetaCognito, that means transformation and cognition. We have MetaCognito. The idea for this channel is to bring you ideas from scriptures that cut across theology, academia, and different areas of science, so you can take those ideas and use them as basis for how you think and how you lead. This isn't your typical Christian channel. Each video will unpack ideas from scripture, science, and personal leadership, so you can think more like Christ and lead from clarity, not conformity. MetaCognito is currently a team of just me for now. I hope to grow the team, and so I'm not going to pretend like I know everything there is to know about the Bible. But from what I've been blessed with and from research, I want to share with you and hope you receive them with gladness. That brings me to the second verse that inspired the name MetaCognito. For this second verse, we go to Matthew chapter 7 verses 13 and 14, where Jesus said, "Enter through the narrow gate, for wide is the gate and broad is the road that leads to destruction, and many enter through it. But small is the gate and narrow the road that leads to life, and only a few find it." I want you to notice the distinctions Jesus was making in this verse. First, there is narrow gate and broad road. Narrow gate leads to life. Broad road leads to destruction. Broad road has a lot of people. Narrow gate has few. Many enter through broad road. Few find narrow gate. Let me paint a mental picture for you. Let's say you're driving on a country road, going at 60 miles per hour, and you need to exit into a side road. If you've never been on that road before, you'll want to approach a bit slowly so you don't miss the right road at the correct turn. But the main road on which you're going, you'll default to a standard driving behavior. This is pretty similar to what Jesus was saying here. To enter a broad road, you only need to drive and go at the speed required. The road is pretty much made for you to enter. But in order to locate the narrow gate, it requires some attention. In order to find, you have to seek. If you're using a map or navigator, you have to check if you're almost at your turning. You won't do it by default. In other words, Jesus is saying if you want to find life, you have to take a different route. You can't go at it or think like everyone else. If you match that with what we read from Romans 12, they both suggest doing things differently. And that's the purpose of this channel. If you've ever felt like you're wired differently, like you're not meant to just follow the crowd, MetaCognito is for you. Go ahead and subscribe to this channel and let's walk this narrow road together. MetaCognito will try to provide you with a type of thinking that makes it easy to recognize God's work in and around you. You no longer waste time saying you're looking for God's will because you recognize you're always in the center of that will. In reality, this type of thinking is for the 10%, and they don't have to be members of a church. They are the type of people you find their thinking attractive. You just know something is different about them. In old philosophical circles, they call it personal presence, personal aura, or personal magic. You have to be able to separate stuff from stuff and identify this cannot pass certain tests. To not conform, that should be obvious, but it doesn't always mean that's reality. This channel hopes to help reduce crowd psychology, groupthink, loss of individuality, and conformity. Because Jesus had said, "Enter through the narrow gate. For wide is the gate and broad is the road that leads to destruction, and many enter through it. But small is the gate and narrow the road that leads to life, and only a few find it." Over time, people have used that to mean that Christians should isolate themselves from the world. But that's just another extreme on its own. MetaCognito is here to help you see the wisdom in differentiating your thinking from the crowd without isolating yourself from the crowd. Like Jesus, to remain in the world but not of the world. To be insulated rather than isolated. To remain in the middle of a world filled with a divergent culture and still be able to think like God. To lead like Christ. If you're ready to think differently, lead with more courage and see God's will in a whole new light, hit subscribe and join me on this MetaCognito journey. Thank you so much for watching.